What if the story of World War II you learned in school was only half the truth? What if the war's most decisive moments didn't happen on the famous battlefields, but in the shadows, carried out by forgotten heroes and secret operations? The history you know is one of tanks, trenches, and famous generals. It's a story of Pearl Harbor, D-Day, and the atomic bomb. But that's not the whole picture. The real war was also a war of whispers, of lies, and of unthinkable sacrifice. It was a war won by mathematicians who never fired a shot, soldiers who were erased from the history books, and ghosts who haunted the skies. This is the secret history of World War II, the lesser-known battles and covert operations that were arguably more decisive. These are the stories they didn't show you, the truths buried by time. And they will change everything you thought you knew about the greatest conflict in human history. History remembers the Blitz, the invasion of Normandy, the Battle of the Bulge. These were titanic struggles, but they weren't the only ones that mattered. The war was truly won and lost in a series of brutal, often overlooked battles. These are the places where the tide of war truly turned. It began on the Eastern Front, in a city bearing Stalin's name. Stalingrad, from late 1942 to early 1943, became the deadliest battle in human history. It wasn't just a battle, it was a meat grinder. The German Sixth Army, once thought invincible, was lured into the city's rubble. As the brutal Russian winter closed in, the Soviets launched Operation Uranus, a massive pincer movement that encircled the invaders. Hitler, in his fanaticism, forbade any retreat. The result was a nightmare beyond comprehension. Starvation, frostbite, and relentless attrition claimed hundreds of thousands. By the time the German commander Friedrich Paulus surrendered, his army was gone. Nearly 2 million people were dead, wounded, or missing. Stalingrad didn't just stop the German advance, it broke the back of the Wehrmacht. The myth of Nazi invincibility died in the frozen streets of that city. Thousands of miles away, another decisive blow was struck, this time on the waves of the Pacific. In June 1942, the Japanese Empire, still riding high from its victory at Pearl Harbor, planned to finish the US Pacific Fleet. They brought an enormous fleet, confident in their numerical superiority. But they had a fatal weakness. Their codes had been broken. American cryptanalysts had tirelessly deciphered Japan's naval plans, giving Admiral Chester Nimitz an unprecedented advantage. He knew where the Japanese fleet would be and when. As Japanese planes attacked Midway Island, American dive bombers descended on the unsuspecting Japanese carriers. In the space of just 5 minutes, 3 of Japan's most powerful carriers were turned into burning wrecks. A fourth, the Hiryu, was sunk hours later. It was a catastrophic loss from which the Imperial Japanese Navy would never recover. Midway wasn't just won by brave pilots, it was won by the codebreakers who gave them the element of surprise, sinking an empire with intelligence. While the Pacific was turning, another forgotten front reached its climax in the deserts of North Africa. In late 1942, at a dusty railway stop called El Alamein, British General Bernard Montgomery faced off against the legendary Desert Fox, Erwin Rommel. North Africa was the key to the Mediterranean, and Rommel's Afrika Korps seemed unstoppable. But Montgomery amassed overwhelming force. For 13 brutal days, the battle raged, with artillery barrages turning the desert into a hellscape. Rommel's forces, overstretched and undersupplied, finally broke. The Axis retreat from Africa began, a grueling 2,000-mile flight that ended in their complete surrender in the region. El Alamein was the turning point in North Africa, securing the Mediterranean for the Allies, paving the way for the invasion of Italy. Finally, we returned to the Eastern Front, to the summer of 1943. After the Stalingrad disaster, Hitler was desperate for a victory. He planned a massive attack on a Soviet salient near the city of Kursk. The result was the largest tank battle in history. On the rolling plains of Western Russia, 2 million soldiers clashed. Thousands of tanks and tens of thousands of artillery pieces clashed. The Soviets, forewarned of the attack, had constructed defenses of staggering depth. Miles of minefields, anti-tank ditches, and fortified positions were built. The German panzers, with their new Tiger and Panther tanks, charged into a wall of fire. The losses were astronomical on both sides. The Germans bled themselves dry, losing a huge portion of their armored strength. The offensive was called off after a week of ferocious fighting. Germany would never again launch a major strategic offensive on the Eastern Front. From Kursk onward, the Red Army was on the attack, all the way to Berlin. These battles, Stalingrad, Midway, El Alamein, and Kursk, weren't just victories. They were the breaking points of the Axis powers. They were won with blood, courage, and intelligence, sealing the fate of the war long before the final shots were fired. But what if the most important victories weren't won on the battlefield at all? While armies clashed, a secret war was being waged in the shadows. A war of deception, espionage, and intelligence that would prove just as decisive. The greatest victories of WWII were often won not with bullets, but with brilliant lies. Carefully crafted secrets manipulated the minds of the enemy. One of the most audacious deceptions of the war was Operation Mincemeat. In 1943, the Allies were planning to invade Sicily, an obvious target. To succeed, they had to convince Hitler the real target was elsewhere. The plan's architects, Ewan Montagu and Charles Cholmondeley, obtained the body of a homeless man. They gave him a fake identity, Captain William Martin of the Royal Marines. They filled his pockets with personal effects, love letters, ticket stubs, keys. The masterstroke was a briefcase chained to his wrist, containing falsified documents. The documents hinted at an Allied invasion of Greece and Sardinia. The body was released from a submarine off the coast of Spain. It was known the pro-German Spanish authorities would pass any findings to the Nazis. It worked perfectly. The papers were passed to German intelligence. Hitler himself, completely convinced, ordered divisions moved from Sicily to Greece. When the Allies invaded Sicily on July 9, 1943, they met far less resistance. Thousands of lives were saved, all thanks to a dead man who never was. Even more impactful was the war being waged by minds, not soldiers, at a secret estate in the English countryside, Bletchley Park. Here, a team of brilliant mathematicians and linguists, including Alan Turing, worked around the clock to crack Germany's unbreakable Enigma Code. The Enigma machine was a cipher device used by the German military to encrypt their most secret communications. Breaking it was a monumental task with billions of possible combinations. But with help from Polish intelligence, the codebreakers at Bletchley Park developed machines like Turing's Bombay to systematically decipher the messages. The intelligence gained, codenamed Ultra, was a war-winning weapon. It gave Allied commanders unprecedented insight into German strategy, troop movements, and supply lines. Ultra helped the Royal Navy hunt U-boats in the Atlantic, gave Montgomery an edge at El Alamein, and was instrumental in countless other engagements. For years, the Germans had no idea their codes were being read. The War of Wits at Bletchley Park is estimated to have shortened the war by 2 to 4 years, saving millions of lives. As the Allies prepared for the largest amphibious invasion in history, D-Day, they knew surprise was everything. The Germans knew an invasion was coming, but where? The most logical spot was the Pas de Calais. The Allies needed to convince Hitler this was indeed their target, while their real objective was Normandy. This led to Operation Fortitude, the most complex deception in military history. The Allies created an entirely fake army, the 1st US Army Group, FUSAG, supposedly based in southeastern England. This phantom army was given a real and famously aggressive commander, General George S. Patton. Hollywood set designers created dummy landing craft and inflatable rubber tanks to fool German reconnaissance. A flood of fake radio traffic simulated a massive army preparing to invade. Double agents fed false information to their German handlers, confirming the Calais threat. The deception was so complete that even after the first Allied troops landed on the beaches of Normandy on June 6, 1944, Hitler remained convinced it was merely a diversion. He held back crucial panzer divisions in the Pas de Calais, waiting for Patton's real invasion. That critical delay gave the Allies the precious time they needed to establish a secure beachhead. These operations, Mincemeat, Ultra, and Fortitude, were triumphs of the imagination. They proved the war was fought not just with industrial might, but with cunning, intellect, and the power of a well-told lie. But what about the heroes whose stories were never told? The official histories of World War II are filled with the names of great men and famous armies. But beneath that narrative lies a world of forgotten heroes and suppressed atrocities. These are the stories of those who fought their own wars, often without recognition. In the dead of night on the Eastern Front, German soldiers learned to fear a soft, whistling sound. This was the attack of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment, an all-female Soviet air unit. The Germans nicknamed them the Nachthexen, or Night Witches. Flying outdated wood and canvas biplanes, these women flew thousands of daring missions. Their planes were so slow, their top speed was lower than the stall speed of German fighters. But they turned this weakness into a strength. They flew only at night, cutting their engines as they approached their targets. Because their planes could only carry 2 bombs at a time, each crew flew multiple sorties. They flew over 24,000 missions, dropping thousands of tons of bombs. At least 32 of these brave women died during the war. While the Night Witches fought for a nation that celebrated them, another group of heroes fought alone. In August 1944, as the Red Army advanced toward Warsaw, the Polish Home Army launched an uprising. They believed the approaching Soviets would support them. They were betrayed. The Red Army halted its advance, watching as the Germans systematically crushed the rebellion. Stalin had no interest in a free Poland and saw this as a chance for the Germans to eliminate the resistance. For 63 days, the people of Warsaw fought on with incredible courage. The Germans responded with overwhelming brutality, executing civilians and burning the city. By the time the uprising was suppressed, an estimated 150,000 to 200,000 civilians had been killed. Warsaw was a smoldering ruin. The Warsaw Uprising stands as a testament to both incredible heroism and sickening political betrayal. History also tries to forget the contributions of millions of soldiers who weren't from Europe or America. In 1944, in the dense jungles of northeast India, one of the most brutal campaigns of the war took place. The battles of Imphal and Kohima. The Japanese launched an offensive into India, hoping to spark a revolt against British rule. They were met by a multinational force of British, Indian, and African soldiers. The fighting was savage, often hand-to-hand in hellish monsoon conditions. The battle for Kohima, in particular, was fought with an intensity that rivaled any in Europe. The Allied forces held on until they were relieved. The Japanese army, starving and ravaged by disease, was forced into a disastrous retreat. It was the greatest land defeat in Japanese history up to that point, shattering their ambitions in South Asia. Yet these battles, fought by a diverse army far from the European theatre, are barely a footnote in most Western histories.
In the shadow of the grand theatres of war, there existed smaller yet equally pivotal battles that played a crucial role in shaping the outcome of World War II. One such battle unfolded in the dense, foreboding jungles of Burma, a region often eclipsed in the annals of history by the more prominent European and Pacific campaigns. The Battle of Imphal, fought between March and July 1944, was a critical turning point in the Southeast Asian theatre, yet it remains largely unacknowledged in mainstream historical narratives. The Japanese Empire, at the height of its expansion, sought to break the British hold on India by launching an ambitious offensive through the mountainous terrain of northeastern India. Their goal was not only to conquer new territory, but to incite a rebellion among Indian nationalists against British rule. The stakes were high. A successful campaign could shift the balance in Asia, opening a new front that would drain Allied resources and morale. The Japanese forces, driven by zeal and the promise of glory, advanced swiftly, besieging the British-held city of Imphal. Facing overwhelming odds, the British and Indian troops, under the leadership of General William Slim, mounted a tenacious defense. Imphal's defenders, a mix of British, Indian, and African soldiers, were outnumbered and outgunned. Yet they held their ground against the relentless Japanese assault. Enduring grueling conditions and a severe shortage of supplies, they fought on. In this forgotten corner of the world, the Allies employed a combination of strategic ingenuity and sheer endurance. The rugged terrain and monsoon rains transformed the battlefield into a quagmire, complicating logistics and combat operations for both sides. Yet it was in these harsh conditions that the Allies demonstrated their resilience. Utilizing air supply lines, they managed to sustain their besieged forces, a tactic that would later be refined and used effectively elsewhere in the war. The battle raged for months, characterized by fierce close-quarter combat and the constant threat of ambush. The Japanese, realizing the critical nature of their mission, fought with a determination that bordered on desperation. But the Allies, drawing upon their diverse backgrounds and shared resolve, gradually turned the tide. Reinforcements and superior air power allowed them to break the siege, inflicting a crushing defeat on the Japanese forces. This victory at Imphal was not merely a defensive success. It marked the beginning of a counter-offensive that would eventually drive the Japanese out of Burma. Meanwhile, across the globe in the icy waters of the North Atlantic, another less recognized conflict was reaching its climax. The Battle of the Atlantic was a protracted struggle for control of the vital shipping lanes that sustained the Allied war effort. German U-boats prowled these waters, seeking to sever the lifeline that connected the United States with its European allies. This battle was one of endurance and ingenuity, fought by merchant sailors and naval escorts who braved the perils of the open ocean. The stakes were immense. Every ship lost to the U-boats was a blow to the Allied supply chain, threatening their ability to sustain the war effort. In response, the Allies developed new tactics and technologies, including the use of sonar and depth charges, to counter the U-boat threat. They implemented convoy systems, grouping merchant vessels together under the protection of warships. This strategy significantly reduced losses and stymied the German offensive. As these battles unfolded, they went largely unnoticed by the wider world, overshadowed by the more dramatic headlines from Europe and the Pacific. Yet the outcomes of these conflicts were critical. The victory at Imphal secured the Eastern Front, preventing the Japanese from advancing into India and destabilizing the region. The success in the Atlantic ensured that vital supplies continued to flow into Europe. This enabled the Allies to maintain their war effort and prepare for the eventual liberation of the continent. These battles, fought far from the public eye, were not mere footnotes in the grand narrative of World War II. They were integral to the eventual Allied victory. This demonstrated the global nature of the conflict and the diverse array of strategies and sacrifices that contributed to its resolution.
Finally, there are horrors that were deliberately hidden. In occupied Manchuria, the Japanese Imperial Army operated a secret facility called Unit 731. This wasn't just a weapons lab, it was a factory of human suffering. Under General Shiro Ishii, Japanese scientists subjected thousands of prisoners to horrific experiments. They were deliberately infected with plague, cholera, and anthrax. Prisoners were subjected to vivisections without anesthesia. They were used as living targets to test grenades and flamethrowers. The true death toll is impossible to know due to destroyed records. Direct experiments killed at least 3,000 to 12,000 people. Estimates for deaths from related biological warfare field tests range from 200,000 to over 500,000. After the war, the United States granted immunity to Ishii and his staff in exchange for research data. As a result, the full story of Unit 731 remained a secret for decades. The common story of the end of the war in Europe is a dramatic one. Allied armies racing to Berlin, Hitler's final days in his bunker, and the unconditional surrender. But the truth is, Germany was defeated long before the final documents were signed. The war didn't end with a bang, but with the quiet collapse of a machine that had simply run out of fuel. By early 1945, the German war effort was running on fumes. The relentless Allied bombing campaign had systematically destroyed Germany's industrial heartland. Synthetic oil plants, crucial for fueling tanks and planes, had been pulverized. The transportation network was in chaos. Railways were bombed out, bridges were down, and constant air attacks crippled movement. Meanwhile, armies on the Eastern Front had been bled white in a series of brutal Soviet offensives. Germany was strategically, logistically, and economically broken. Hitler's suicide on April 30, 1945, was the final psychological blow. The Reich was already a hollow shell. He named Grand Admiral Karl Dönitz as his successor. His primary goal wasn't to continue the fight, but to save as many German soldiers as possible. He knew the war was lost. His strategy was to stall, ordering German units to surrender to the Western Allies. But General Dwight D. Eisenhower saw through the ploy and demanded immediate, unconditional surrender. Faced with no alternative, Dönitz authorized General Alfred Jodl to sign the surrender at Reims, France, on May 7, 1945. The war in Europe officially ended on May 8th. But this was just a formality. The Third Reich had already choked to death on its own failures. The story of World War II is far more complex and shadowed than we're often led to believe. It was a war decided not only on the grand famous battlefields, but in the code-breaking huts of Bletchley Park, on a desolate Spanish shoreline in the haunted skies over the Eastern Front, and in the quiet, grinding collapse of a nation's ability to wage war. The forgotten battles, the covert operations, the unsung heroes, and the hidden horrors. These are the pieces of the puzzle that complete the picture. They show us that history is never as simple as it seems. It's shaped by countless acts of courage, brilliant strokes of deception, and the grim realities of logistics and betrayal. The world you live in today was forged in these hidden moments. So, which of these secret stories do you think truly turned the tide of the war? Was it the codebreakers who sank an empire, the ghost army that fooled Hitler, or the forgotten soldiers who held the line against impossible odds? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to uncover more of the untold history that they won't show you in school, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll investigate the secret weapons programs that terrified nations and could have changed the outcome of the war.